Welcome back to NBA Decision 2010. You are looking at Austin Rivers, member of the USA team on the Under-18 championships at the FIBA Americas. And on Wednesday night in San Antonio, they beat Brazil for the gold medal. Austin's father, Doc, in attendance, cheering him on. And Austin is one of 4 children that Doc has, and that was this sort of the tug back to family that he was wrestling with. Should I go back to the Celtics or spend this year with family? And this was Doc Rivers on his decision to return to the Boston Celtics. Quote, "My kids were like, 'Dad, come on. I wouldn't leave if I were you. You have to go for it one more time. You're too close. That's what I'm going to do. If we get there, we get there. If we don't, at least we tried." So Doc Rivers, with the full support of his family, and on Wednesday night in San Antonio, he added this quote.
"I'm just glad the decision is made and over. A lot of soul searching with the family, and we want to go after this one more time. We got Kevin and Paul and Ray hopefully all coming back, and why not? Let's see if we can do it one more time."
Doc, we're happy you're back as head coach of the Boston Celtics. Rick Hamlet, David Aldridge, Lawrence Frank, Dennis Scott. Coach, I come to you on this. How does the good news of Doc Rivers coming back to coach the Celtics impact Ray Allen's free agency and Paul Pierce's free agency? Because these guys could walk or they could come back for another run, as Doc said.
Well, he was the most important domino. Doc is the only guy who can coach this team next year. So for that domino, for them to get that, now it obviously gives them a much greater chance to retain their services. Now, how the economics of basketball factor into it, who knows? But from an emotional level, you know those guys love to play for Doc Rivers.
Now, Dennis, would you be shocked, and that's the word I want you to focus on here, would you be shocked if the big three were broken up and either Pierce leaves, Ray comes back, or one or the other? But do you think the big three will be back in Boston?
I think they will. I wouldn't be totally shocked. I'd be more shocked if Paul Pierce left because he's been a lifer for the Celtics. Ray, there's a little iffy there. I wouldn't be surprised if another team stepped up and offered him some more money or maybe another year to make it more attractive for him to leave. But Pierce want to be an all-time Celtic great, to get back to the finals, maybe winning, get another MVP so he can be in the same category with Bird and have to check the rest of those guys. I think he stays because he can get more money if he stays.
Now, D.A., talk to me a little bit about Pierce and Ray, but let's move the conversation towards Rasheed Wallace a little bit. The news at the end of Game 7 at the finals was that was probably Rasheed Wallace's final game as an NBA basketball player. Doc Rivers coming back. Might that shift Rasheed Wallace's thinking here?
It could. I know it's going to have a positive impact on Paul Pierce. He's a big Doc Rivers fan. And so that's good news for the Celtics in terms of making it easier for him to re-sign. But there will be suitors for Paul Pierce. There will be suitors for Ray Allen. I mean, players like that who help get you over the hump, much like a Chauncey Billups did in Denver a couple of years ago, getting you from one level to another level with their experience, their championship pedigree. Guys like that are going to be in demand. Teams are going to want them. Now, as everyone's mentioned, this is a different economic climate. Paul Pierce is not going to get a 4-year contract for $96 million. Now, he could get that. That's conceivably what he could get from Boston. There's no way Boston's paying a 36-year-old player $27 million in the last year of his deal. That's just not happening. So what's the market for Paul Pierce going to be? A team that gets shut out maybe in the early stages of free agency, or a team that has, again, pieces that they might be able to put together in a sign and trade? It could happen. My guess is still that Paul winds up a Celtic. I'm not so sure about Ray. I think Ray's going to cost less and maybe have more people interested in him.
I understand Ray Allen is obviously one of the best gunners the NBA has ever seen.
He's still the best shooter in the league to me.
I agree, and just beautiful form. He's only 34 years old. It's not like the guy's ready to be put away here. But Dennis, let's switch gears here to Joe Johnson and talk about the fact that the Atlanta Hawks here, basically at the 11th hour, came out with a report in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that they are going to give Joe Johnson the max, offer him the max. Your thoughts on that? A little bit too late to come out with that news? Should they have done it maybe a month or two ago?
No question about it. Very similar to, they knew they were going, in my opinion, they knew they were going to hire Larry Drew right when the season was over. I thought you should have made both of those moves immediately. One, for season ticket holders to prove that you want to keep your core together. And then after you do that, that. Now you have to pick Josh Smith, Marvin Williams. You still have to pick one of those guys to use them to get a big man in there to help out, because Joe still wants some more help, even though he's going to come back and, of course, accept all that money.
And Joe Johnson, you know, he was pretty perturbed at the end of the season, the way it went out, back-to-back second-round sweeps. Joe Johnson is not a fan of brooms, and the Atlanta Hawks need to work on that. Let's switch gears here and talk about the fact that the top 10 free agents, all the talk about these guys leaving to other teams and moving around, a lot of these guys may actually stay put. James could stay put. Wade could stay put. Bosh, we're pretty sure he's not going back to Toronto. Dirk, Amari, they could go back to their places. Pierce, we just talked about him. Joe receiving a max offer from the Hawks. Boozer maybe kind of going. Lee kind of going. Gay seemingly needs to be brought back by Memphis. But my point is, like, the majority of these guys may actually stay with their current teams. Do you agree?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's still very hard to leave. Back in 2003, when we had Jason Kidd, we thought he was a goner to San Antonio. They beat us in the NBA Finals. Everything was pointing towards that he was going to go to San Antonio. And yet, at the last minute, his heart, he couldn't make that divorce, so to speak. And I think it's going to be very, very hard for LeBron James, being a native of Akron, you know, because if he leaves Cleveland, what's that really saying about Cleveland? You know, because he's one of theirs. So I think it's very, very hard at the end of the day for those guys to disconnect. It's almost like an act of disloyalty. Yet at the same time, maybe, you know, you have to say, hey, look, my best chance to win a championship is somewhere else. So I have to do what's in my best interest in that regard. So it's always interesting, but I do think it's hard to leave.
And by the way, the rules are set up for these guys with their current teams to get paid more by their current teams to help incentivize them to stay and be identifiable with those teams. But we'll see how it goes. We go to break right now. We're going to tell you what's coming up Thursday on NBA TV at 7 Eastern. NBA Decision 2010 continues with Mark Fine, David Aldridge, Steve Smith, Sekou Smith. They break down all the latest news in free agency right here on NBA TV. We're coming back after this.